Imagine being shot in the chest and then refusing to leave the stage. On October 14, 1912, Theodore Roosevelt stood before a crowd in Milwaukee with a bullet lodged inside his body. Blood soaked through his shirt. His aides begged him to go to the hospital. Instead, Roosevelt looked at the audience and declared, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose." Then he delivered a speech that lasted nearly 90 minutes. That single moment captures why Theodore Roosevelt remains one of the most extraordinary and dangerous presidents in American history. He was a man who hunted lions in Africa, charged enemy lines in Cuba, challenged some of the richest men on earth, threatened foreign powers with military force, and transformed the presidency into a position of unprecedented power. But the real Theodore Roosevelt was far more complicated than the legend. This is the untold story of America's most dangerous president. Theodore Roosevelt was born in New York City in 1858 into a wealthy family. Yet from the beginning, his life seemed unlikely to produce a warrior. As a child, Roosevelt was sickly and frail. He suffered from severe asthma attacks that often left him gasping for breath. Doctors had few treatments, and many feared he would never become physically strong. His father gave him a challenge that would shape the rest of his life. "You have the mind," he told Theodore, "but you must make your body." Young Roosevelt took those words seriously. He lifted weights, boxed, hiked, and pushed himself relentlessly. The transformation became one of the defining themes of his life. He developed an almost obsessive belief that struggle and hardship built character. This philosophy would later influence how he governed a nation. By the 1880s, America was changing rapidly. Industrialization was creating enormous fortunes. Railroads stretched across the continent. Massive corporations controlled entire industries. Wealth was concentrating in the hands of a few powerful businessmen, whom critics called robber barons. Roosevelt entered politics during this turbulent era. Unlike many politicians of his time, he openly attacked corruption within his own party. He built a reputation as a reformer willing to confront powerful interests, but tragedy soon struck. In 1884, Roosevelt's wife and mother died on the same day inside the same house. The devastating loss shattered him. He left New York and traveled west to the Dakota Territory, where he became a rancher and cattleman. There, he lived among cowboys, hunted outlaws, and experienced the harsh realities of frontier life. The West transformed Roosevelt. It reinforced his belief in toughness, self-reliance, and decisive action. When he eventually returned to politics, he was no longer just a reformer. 1. The event that made Roosevelt a national hero came during the Spanish-American War in 1898. At the time, he was serving as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. But Roosevelt wanted action. He resigned his position and helped organize a volunteer cavalry unit known as the Rough Riders. The unit included cowboys, athletes, Native Americans, ranchers, and Ivy League graduates. In Cuba, Roosevelt led his men during the charge up Kettle Hill, part of the larger Battle of San Juan Heights. Newspapers turned him into a national celebrity. Although some details of the famous charge were exaggerated over time, there is no question that Roosevelt displayed remarkable courage. The war transformed him into one of the most famous men in America. Soon afterward, he became governor of New York, then vice president, then, unexpectedly, president. In 1901, President William McKinley was assassinated. At just 42 years old, Theodore Roosevelt became the youngest president in American history. Many Republican leaders believed they could control him. They were wrong. Roosevelt immediately expanded the power of the presidency. Previous presidents often acted cautiously. Roosevelt believed the president should actively lead the nation. He argued that the president could do anything not specifically forbidden by the Constitution. This was a revolutionary idea at the time, and it terrified many of his opponents. One of Roosevelt's biggest targets was corporate power. Massive trusts dominated industries ranging from oil to railroads. Many Americans feared these giant corporations had become more powerful than the government itself. Roosevelt launched aggressive antitrust lawsuits against major companies. His battle against Northern Securities, a huge railroad monopoly backed by powerful financier J.P. Morgan, shocked the business world. For the first time, a president was directly challenging some of the richest and most influential men in America. Ironically, Roosevelt was not against big business itself. He believed large corporations were inevitable. What he opposed was unchecked power. His goal was to ensure that no private interest became stronger than the public interest. This distinction is often overlooked today. Roosevelt's influence extended far beyond economics. He became one of America's greatest conservationists. At a time when forests were being cleared at alarming rates and wildlife populations were collapsing, Roosevelt took unprecedented action. He created national forests, wildlife refuges, and protected vast areas of public land. By the end of his presidency, he had conserved approximately 230 million acres. Without Roosevelt's efforts, many iconic American landscapes might look very different today. Yet even here, history remains complicated. Some historians praise his conservation achievements as visionary. Others note that certain policies affected indigenous communities whose historical connections to those lands were often ignored. Both perspectives help us better understand the full picture. Perhaps nowhere was Roosevelt more dangerous than in foreign policy. His famous motto was, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." He believed diplomacy worked best when backed by military strength. Roosevelt aggressively expanded American influence around the world. His most famous international achievement involved the Panama Canal. When negotiations with Colombia stalled, Panama declared independence. The United States quickly supported the new nation. Soon afterward, America secured the rights needed to build the canal. Supporters viewed Roosevelt as a strategic genius. Critics accused him of engineering a geopolitical power play. The debate continues today. What is certain is that the Panama Canal dramatically increased American power and reshaped global trade. After leaving office in 1909, Roosevelt could have retired comfortably. Instead, he became even more controversial. Disappointed with his successor, William Howard Taft, Roosevelt launched a political comeback. In 1912, he ran for president under the Progressive Party, nicknamed the Bull Moose Party. No former president had attempted anything quite like it. The campaign electrified the nation. Then came the assassination attempt in Milwaukee. The bullet struck Roosevelt before his speech. Fortunately, a folded manuscript and eyeglass case in his pocket slowed the bullet. Doctors later determined it was safer to leave the bullet inside him permanently. Once again, Roosevelt turned personal danger into legend. Yet Roosevelt's final years reveal a more human side. He suffered from declining health and personal loss. His adventurous expeditions left lasting physical damage. One expedition into the Amazon nearly killed him. He contracted infections, endured injuries, and emerged weakened. When World War I began, Roosevelt passionately supported American involvement. He even sought permission to lead troops into battle once again. The government refused. For perhaps the first time in his life, Roosevelt could not charge forward into the fight. He died in 1919 at the age of 60. Vice President Thomas Marshall reportedly remarked, "Death had to take Roosevelt sleeping, for if he had been awake, there would have been a fight." More than a century later, Theodore Roosevelt remains one of the most debated presidents in American history. He expanded presidential power, challenged corporate giants, protected millions of acres of wilderness, reshaped America's role in world affairs, and inspired generations with his relentless energy. To some, he was a hero who modernized America. To others, he was a dangerous leader who concentrated too much power in the executive branch. But perhaps both views contain part of the truth. Theodore Roosevelt was not simply a politician. He was a force that changed the direction of a nation. And whether admired or criticized, one fact remains undeniable. Few presidents have left a larger footprint on American history, or lived a life that seemed determined to turn every day into an adventure.